Hi, everyone. This is a Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. This is Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I am tickled pink to have Cheryl Fullerton on the phone with me today. She and I are, we connected through LinkedIn. I happened to see a couple posts that were out there. And basically it was just really good culture, lots of rich connection with their people. And I could see she was just on a real positive journey. And those are the people I'm always looking for. Those who are really emotionally intelligent, connected to their people, and looking forward to doing good work for the organization and their team. So that is why you're on the show, Cheryl.
Wonderful. I'm tickled pink to be here.
So where are you right now anyway in your leadership journey?
So I am the Executive Vice President of People and Communication with Corus Entertainment and located in Canada, Toronto, Canada. And on the company side, Corus Entertainment, in case you or your listeners don't know what that is, we're Canada's largest pure play media and content company. So we've got some of the best brands and programs up here in Canada, things like HGTV Canada or Adult Swim, programs like Hallmark Christmas movies, which are very popular, shows like Batwoman, which is my favorite this fall, that kind of content on TV. We have 15 conventional TV stations, 35 cable TV stations. We also have radio, 39 radio stations. We have a news organization, an animation studio, animation software company, original lifestyle content studio, digital social agency. So it's very much a media portfolio type company. As you can tell from that kind of business, it's exciting, it's dynamic, it's fast-paced, and it's really evolving. So this is an industry that's going through a lot of really exciting change, and clearly you can probably tell from the tone of my voice, I absolutely love it. And in my role, being people and communications, on the people side, it's things like, the typical quote-unquote HR portfolio, talent and rewards and recognition, labor, performance coaching. On the communications side, I have the great good luck to have internal communications and external corporate communications, industry sponsorships, social responsibility, stuff like that, which I really feel makes me stronger on the people and culture side of my work as well.
Yeah, I can see that connection. What I often find is there's like all these silos. And so since you have the in and the out view of things, you can have that lens when you're dealing with people internally about how things are like impacting and firming up on the outside. And that's what's often missed, for example, in a traditional HR perspective, right? They don't always get that. What's the end result of all the training and the coaching and all these other things you're doing? How's that impacting the end user?
And Heather, that goes to, why I'm even here in the first place, right? So, I see my job, my role as being a company builder, and my goal is to build strong companies and to build strong people. So, trying to make sure that this company is seen internally and externally as strong and has the character and the impact on society that we can all be proud of, and internally that we're building strong people who have, the full opportunity to show their value and develop their potential and support each other. So, having those two things together really allows me to do that with impact and with meaning.
As you talk, I'm just, so happy to have you here. I'm a really good gut person, and I'm glad I chose you because I could sense that, yes, you were a really good, I guess, a caricature, if you think about it, as it relates to the Leadership with Heart leader.
You just
and
fit
that's the
right in
power
there.
of the LinkedIn post. Well, that, I mean, and that goes to just that point, right? If you feel responsible for building and demonstrating the character and the strength of your company so that your people are proud to work here, and you've got the reputation with partners externally, something like a LinkedIn post is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. So true. Yeah, you don't really think about that. I have been on LinkedIn for several years, and it's the main way I build my brand. I mean, people know me, and of course now the podcast is a portion of that. All of it's a labor of love, as you alluded to with what you do too, right? Everybody they can feel it, they can sense this is exactly where I should be, this is what I should be doing, right? So it's powerful. And so I think the message there is also, as a leader, it's important to remember that someone's always watching, and you get to choose what it is they see when they watch you. And so these posts, like the post that you talked about, it really, for me, it framed up for me the kind of person and leader you were. And I wanted to, dive deeper into that. And then as we talk, it completely aligns. And that's the second thing I think that's important is we put out this brand, whether it's a corporate brand, a personal leadership brand, and we need to make sure there's alignment there with our actions and our words, right?
Exactly.
Not just like this facade we put out there.
Yeah, because then you do the good work to figure out who you are and what you stand for and why that's important. You have to do that in order to be able to communicate that and share that with people. And that is the first foundational building block to a high-performance culture. So it just all really fits together well.
I love that. So what would the people that you lead say about you as a leader? How would they say your leadership style is?
Okay. So many things, I'm sure. I think it's funny. We've had some new people join the team recently, so I've tried to describe that. So I'm just going to try and recycle some of the words I've used for them. One of the things as a leader, I like to think out loud. I like to talk through and share and debate and admit mistakes and change our minds. I think it's a way of making sure that we're all aligned. I think it's a way of testing my own assumptions and building strength in other people. So that's a big part of my leadership style. We alluded to one piece of this a second ago. I love what I do. I always have, this company and other companies, and I firmly believe if you have the ability in your life to be in a job that you love, you should embrace that. So I have fun and I love to create, and I want my team to have that same kind of creativity and idea that you're building and using your talents, and this is fun and this is enjoyable. I like to use words like happiness at work. I don't think that gets in the way of great results. I think that's an enabler of great results. And I say, there's some things that I say all the time, which I think probably too much. They could all repeat them word for word. But when you know that something is important, it's important now. It's not important when you can reach perfection. It's more important to get started. So I really try and make sure that we focus on don't over-engineer. I say the words a lot. How hard can it be? They hate when I say that, but it challenges us to try and simplify, to get to the heart of what really we're trying to do. How can we do that? How can we get started? And always know why you're doing what you're doing. Don't just do anything for the sake of doing it. Know the problem that you're trying to solve before you do it. And having those kinds of conversations out loud just builds for strength in everybody and much better work.
Wow. I can just see the people around you going, they have to be empowered, because someone who's a leader like you says, like, let's not look for perfection. Let's get started. You're going to be innovative in your thinking. You're going to push other people to be innovative. But one question I do have for you in that space, I know this has had to happen because we all make mistakes. What happens in those cases where you're like, let's get started? What's your process for when you get started and things start to get like a little bumpy and it's not smooth and maybe it's not going like you think? What's your process to make them realize that it's okay that they aren't doing just perfectly in this endeavor?
And we build that in because we say that before we even start anything. When we set our plan for the beginning of the year, I stand up in front of everybody and say, this isn't exactly what we're going to do. It's the best we know now, and we're going to learn. So the expectation is clear that we're challenging ourselves all the time. So things do go off the rails. We choose some bad objectives sometimes, and we have to say we're going to let that go. That wasn't the most important thing to do. Sometimes we will have the wrong idea about how to accomplish something, but because we talk things through in that collaborative way, It's just our actual normal way of working. I did some research a couple of years ago on a culture of innovation, and that really embedded the strength of how important it is to have that kind of culture. So you don't even talk about don't being afraid of failure, and you learn from failure, and all of that kind of, that's not separate from what you do. You're just always creating, you're always checking, you're always trying to see, are you doing what you want to do? And that is just how you work. And that is what enables a culture of innovation.
So basically you're talking about rapid iteration. You iterate as you go and you evaluate along the way. And you're just kind of constantly.
Exactly. I mean, people call it different things. It's test and learn, fail fast. It's just, I like to say always test your assumptions and just always be open. And it's not actually easy to work in that kind of environment, particularly if you never have before. And one of the challenges is it can feel like I'm not just trusted to go off and do my job. I have to bring things and we have to talk it through and other people get a chance to weigh in on it. It can feel disempowering for certain types of people, or if they're not understanding the benefits of it. So it's very important to try and build a culture where it's very much the norm and where the benefits of that are very clear so that you can help people get through that phase. And I've had to get through that phase too. I'm very accomplishment oriented, and the idea of having to share my work was hard for me early and keep people updated. But I see the benefit of it. You do much better work.
It's interesting. I'm going through this process right now with a publisher. And in fact, I have a call with him after I talk to you. And it's been interesting too, because I want it to be like good. And I'm like, oh, this is good. And they're like, well, no, you got to tweak some more. Oh, no. And you have to tweak some more. And I'm like, okay, can I just do this, please? So it is hard because I'm like you. I want to get it done. And I'm a very accomplishment focused person too. So I can see how that would be difficult now that you say it. Thank you for checking my frame there, that, it's not, it sounds empowering, and it can be for those who already have that inside their internal culture, inside themselves. But then for those who might be that person who wants to drive for accomplishment, it may feel like they're being slowed down because they have to continue to go check in.
Right. And if you just think about the labels and the words, people use the word empowerment all the time. So we say that's a good thing, that's what you want to try and build. And then if you define that in your mind as I'm just allowed to go do this thing without ever having to check in, it's my baby, like that feel of ownership is a great feeling. I love that too. But then we're also saying collaboration and sharing. And so in the real world, it's messy, but it's all true. And you have to try and reconcile that for people. And that's why the talking out loud and standing up and saying, okay, that was hard and we made a mistake. And okay, I was wrong and that person was right. That's really helpful for everybody to see that it is not just as easy as you say it's going to be.
Interesting. The other thing that pops into mind as you're talking about this is, in a culture like this, you've got to have psychological safety. Yeah. And so, like, people which doesn't exist in many places, but you're basically forcing the issue. You're saying we're gonna talk. You're gonna talk. If you need to get your word, like if you need to get this out, if we need to move forward with, we want to make sure you talk. So we're gonna talk. And in a lot of environments, they're not communicative, so they're not going to be open like that, and they don't feel comfortable to do that, because what might happen is, oh, you messed up. You did that. You shouldn't have said it that way, right? Yep. So I think that's that's kind of.
And that honestly, what you just said, Heather, is the secret sauce. There has to be the right kind of outcome so that when you do it, it's supported and celebrated and not squashed. Otherwise, again, you're just saying things without actually meaning it.
Wow. That's a big one. I have seen it way too much where people don't speak up. And what do you do for those who might be, in your space? I'm sure you don't have all extroverts or people who are just super comfortable, I guess, outgoing, talking. How do you bring out the people who tend to be not just introverted, but more like just the quiet people who stay on the sidelines just waiting because they don't feel like they have anything to add? What is it you do, because your culture is so rich for this? What do you do?
That's a good question. And I don't want to give the impression that is the only way it is a whole bunch of people around a table debating and discussing. Sometimes it's a mindset of that. So it can be a one-on-one. It can be two people hashing things out because those are the right two people to hash something out. It can be somebody listening to a group conversation and mulling it over and coming back later and saying that they have a question or that they want to challenge something that was said and saying it to someone they maybe feel more comfortable with and not in front of the whole group. That's the same thing. It just looks different. Everybody is so different, and you can't force people to show up exactly the same because, again, that's not going to work.
Mm. Oh, I love that. There's a right there, and just what you said, there's a level of acceptance that I think is missing to a large extent in many workplaces where, again, like I am who I am, I show up as me, you show up as you. How do we come to the middle of that? How do we accept one another, not just the words we say, but like the humanness of it all? Like you said, the messiness of it all. How do we accept that?
Yeah. And that's at the heart of everything everybody's doing on diversity and inclusion. At the heart of it, it's a culture, and it is inclusion. And again, it's a buzzword which can sometimes get in the way of understanding. But it honestly just means that we use the tagline uniquely us, uniquely you, as a way of trying to get at that each person is their own mix of all kinds of different identities and hats and feelings, and we're complicated, beautiful people, and a culture that can allow each person and value each person for their uniqueness so that they can develop their own potential and happiness and have their impact. That is what's going to build diverse organizations. So that's what we're trying. We bake all of this stuff into our DNA from day one, and it's in everything we do. It's not separate. It's not a D&I program. It's in all of our brand language. It's in our values. It's in the way we communicate. It's what we believe. It's the character we want to have. And it shows up on the people side, and it shows up on the communication side.
Wow, that's pretty powerful. I want to get a hold of some of those values and post some of the different things that you'd be willing to share for those who might be listening, of just ways that you do that. Because that bake-in idea, I'm assuming you mean like so number one, your messaging to prospective employees, and then when they come in, the onboarding side of things, I'm assuming it's just like an entire process. I don't expect you to share the whole thing, but if there's something interesting, it'd be cool.
And even more than that, it was only 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, when we put two equal-sized companies together to make this company, and we said we were creating a new company. And right from that statement was a belief that we had to be in a world where we were challenging assumptions, that we don't take things for granted on this is how things are done. So we looked at everything fresh to say, who do we want to be in the future? What kind of company, what kind of culture, what kind of people? So again, I came in just immediately before that. So it was a blessing to be able to have input to what is our brand language going to be? What words do we want to embed in our values? Because those are the words I'm going to want to use in years down the road as I try and build a strong company and strong people. So we embedded words like, we're here to support the personal well-being of people. And I didn't use the words diversity and inclusion. I used support the well-being of people who work here, because that is what that is, knowing that I could use that later for that purpose.
So where does your drive to lead come from? Like, it's obvious that you are, a natural leader, you're an inspirational leader. Where does that come from? Did it start from any particular place?
I think I do a lot of career coaching, so it's something I help other people think through. I think that I personally think that good leaders have two different components, and those are things maybe that I think they're good because I've seen them in myself, and that's supported my own decision to make this career path. But I think good leaders have equal parts drive for creating, for having impact, for accomplishing, for setting direction and making decisions, and that whole desire to actually have a say and make an impact and be part of the people who get to have more ability to do that, and equal parts honest desire and interest in other people and a desire to support them and to help them, and interest in people, because you can't just have that desire to help support other people and all the words we use there unless you actually are interested in and just like people. So if you've got both of those things, either one of them is beautiful and wonderful, but you put those two things together, and I think that's what leaders make. And I'm a very accomplishment-oriented person. I always have been. And I also am fascinated by people, and I love understanding how they tick and what they do and how can I help. We have one TV show, New Amsterdam, and that's the taglines like, dang, that's my taglines. Like, how can I help? And that's part of my DNA too. So those two things together are kind of, I think, where my drive comes from. My overt fascination with leadership came years ago when I was working for a company quite young, and a CEO who'd been there for a long, long time retired, and a new one came in, and it felt like we worked for a different company within days, and he hadn't done anything yet. And it was fascinating to me, the impact that somebody could have just by the way they talk, the energy they have, the way they connect with people, and saying we, and I understand, and it was fascinating to me, and I just really wanted to figure that out. So that was a little bit of a pivot in my personal career.
I love it, and that is so true. I don't know if you listened to that introduction to the podcast, and I talk about what leaders say, what they fail to say, what they do and they fail to do, and understanding the power that you wield just by your presence, just by the things you say, what you do. Even like you said, without doing anything, but just like being present, it's amazing how much impact. So when people realize that it could be positive or negative, and the impression it can leave on people, and what it inspires them to do or doesn't, deflates them, right?
I know.
It's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And that's why I think leaders that over-index on the I'm just there to help, I like people side, without having enough of the desire to be the one that calls the shots and has a say, they might not understand and appreciate the impact they have on people and be willing to step up to that. And people need that too. They need trust and confidence that the ship is being steered properly. It's incredibly important to people and their psychological safety.
That's good. Now that's really powerful right there, because I do talk a lot about obviously all the soft side of things. And in the end, I am someone who drives for success too. And I always was that person, but that you're absolutely right. That whole equal, I'm not sure it's equal. I love the equal parts concept. I'm not sure my parts are equal, but I definitely
I'm not sure mine are either.
Right. But I love it.
Yeah,
exactly. Complimentary. I love that part, that it's complimentary, but I love this idea of, people needing trust and confidence. So it's like, yes, you have these other sides, you care, that you trust, that you trust them, and that you have a desire to want them to grow and all these things. But at the same time, they also need to know, like, all of this great stuff that it feels good also is producing something that's measurable. And I think that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now that we've heard how amazing you are, and you're amazing based on any story you tell on this entire podcast, but I want you to share now a time when you were not the best version of you. And it could be yesterday, and it could be 10 years from today. But share a time that when you were not the best version, and what did you do to kind of come out of that situation?
That's such a hard thing. By nature, I'm the kind of person that only remembers the good and doesn't remember the bad. And maybe that's a self-preservation thing. But it's funny, when you say that, I'm just going to pick up the thing that popped to my head first. And it may not be the biggest thing, but it may be something. It's been a lifelong thing that I've had to be aware of. So maybe it's the right thing. And that would be, again, early in my career, early leadership role, again, very action-oriented, fast-paced, accomplishment-oriented type person. And there was somebody on a project implementation team who was always pointing out why things wouldn't work. And everybody else on the team was in my mindset, and it will be fine, everything will work out, don't be such a naysayer, and actually didn't like that person, which sounds horrific to say, which shows, how badly I felt about having felt that. And nothing happened other than, as you can tell, I'm an introspective person and an analytical person, and I didn't like what it felt like to be so impatient with somebody and to wish they wouldn't speak up, and it felt lousy. So I decided to try. I have a Bachelor of Science, so I tried to decide an experiment for myself, and then I would go out of my way to just find a way to like him and be nice to him. And so I just started talking to him and asking him questions and listening a little bit. And lo and behold, not only found he was a very interesting, albeit quirky person, all of the things he was pointing out as problems on the project were very real things that I and everybody else was dismissing just because it was too hard to listen to him. And that was very validating, that thing that felt so bad and wrong was also dumb. It was not going to help me get better results, and it was not going to help me be a better leader. And I took that as part of my makeup on how I wanted to be, and always try and find a way to connect with anybody and everybody and find something to like. When people say you don't have to like everybody you work with, I actually do. I need to find a way that I can appreciate, maybe that's a better word, everybody that I'm with, because it's there. And why would I not want to find that? And I can't say that that was solved in me forever. I remember years later going to work for another company, and I'd only been there a couple of months in a meeting with my boss, and he said something like, well, you don't suffer fools easily, do you? It's like, well, what do you mean? But again, I was showing that impatience obviously too clearly for somebody that I didn't feel was as capable as I thought they should be. So clearly still was working on it, and I probably still am working on it as I'm working on so many things. I have fully embraced that I'm a work in progress, and I hopefully will keep improving till the day I die. This is a non sequitur, but years ago, I heard a radio interview with a concert musician, and he was in his 80s, and he was world renowned. He was talking about his day and how much he practiced, and the interviewer basically said something like, why do you practice given how old you are and how great you are? And he said, but I still have so much to learn. And I've taken that to heart, and I really believe that there is endless amounts of things to learn and to be better. And so hopefully I'm not only still working on my impatience, but all the other things, all my other flaws that I have.
Yeah, and that's the whole kind of message behind this show, is that it's in all those imperfections that we realize the brilliance of this leader with heart, because there's so much heart that underpins it, but there's so much humanness that's there. That's the whole idea, is that we are all imperfect. Even if we are the best of the best, we're still imperfect. So I think when people put so much pressure on themselves to be perfect is a huge challenge, but we do need to continually improve. We need to improve for the betterment of our people that we lead, and also for the organization as a whole, and then of course for the customers, the people that are end users of the product. Because all of us touch one way or another. There's we as organizations, we have to do better at connecting the dots between me as a person and how I impact everything up the line. What happens is things exist in silos and no one's seeing the big picture. So that idea of meaningful work goes away because they're not seeing how the work they do is meaningful to anything up the line. And so this is what I'm saying, though, is I think in the end, we have to kind of see that, we connect the dots, and it all kind of comes together for us.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great.
And
Thank
we
you
have
for
to
sharing.
give ourselves a break, and we have to give other people a break. Quite honestly, we're living in very judgy times. So I think we need to look at the pain and the harm that causes, and just breathe a little bit and be a little bit more human, not less.
More human, not less. Love that. Okay, so for those who are listening right now that could be kind of at a crossroads in their leadership, or just really, to be honest, just need motivation for the week. They're listening to this maybe week by week because they just want to get an extra motivation or some extra tips. What might be 2 pearls of wisdom that you would leave the listeners with today?
Well, as you can tell, I like to talk, so I have more than 2 pearls of wisdom. That's so funny. For leaders specifically, okay. So for leaders, I think I would say the thing to really embrace is that the most important thing I think a leader is there to do is be very clear about objectives and make sure, you just said this a minute ago, make sure people know why, how they fit in, what great looks like. People need that from you. And if you do nothing else and you give that to people, great people will sometimes just figure out all the rest on their own. So that is the most important thing you can do. And the second thing is that whole idea of thinking out loud. Sometimes leaders or managers, wherever you define yourself, get really stuck on feeling they need to know all of the answers. But if you really embrace that, the best way to be is often just say, let's talk it through and figure it out together. You'll not only get stronger people, you'll dig into the problem, you'll probably get better results, you'll build up their thinking ability, you'll challenge your own assumptions about maybe the principles that decisions are made on. I think that if you do nothing else as a leader, that's a very powerful thing to have in your toolkit. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe one thing that's not for leaders specifically, but for everybody, if we are living a life where we have the ability to choose what we do from day to day, and so many people don't. So if you do, and if I do, and if we do, we're lucky. Embrace that. Empower yourself to choose what you want to do with your life. Sometimes I call it live your life on purpose. And it means purpose both ways. It's your life to live. Make sure you know what you're getting out of what you're doing. Be more conscious. And if you don't know why this, whatever this is for you, is good for you, think about it and find it, because then you'll be happier and you'll probably be more successful in whatever you're trying to do. But if it's not there, then make the choices to put yourself in a place that's better for you, because years will pass and nobody else is steering the ship for you. And nothing worse than looking back on years and saying, if I had been choosing my life on purpose, I wouldn't have done that. And I've had a few periods in my life when I've had that, which is why I feel so strongly about it. That's something we should all fight against.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to end that. Wow. Well, Cheryl, thank you so much for being on here. This has really been tremendous. I've been writing. I can't write fast enough to capture all the great thoughts you have. Thank goodness it's recorded, but the writing helps to solidify it in my mind. And I think you probably know this. I'm not sure if you do, but you will be included in my next book, because the first 100 people on my show will be included one way or another. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah. So this has been wonderful.
Heather, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. I have a feeling I could talk to you for hours and we could just discuss and debate and learn from each other. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's been great. So for those who are listening, and if you found value like I did in listening to Cheryl, please do share this episode. Share it far and wide. And obviously, I want you to change as a result of what you hear. So I want you to change your thinking and maybe change some actual behavior that you have. All of that is the goal, is when we're all listening to this. But sharing it, and don't forget to write a review. When you write a review, it helps to elevate the show up on all the other leadership podcasts that are there, so people are able to find it more. So I appreciate that. And anybody who does write a review, when you send that review to me, I give you a little kudo on the show itself. So thanks so much for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.